welcome to this session, short session in our online conference. This is to look at the results of the work that's been done by the people that you see on screen here, who I will introduce in a second, in terms of a project to lobby the UK government to recognise the mobility industry and really take on board the importance that it holds, not just in the normal scheme of things, but post-COVID-19 in terms of the country opening up. So the idea of this session is to talk about how this work was rolled out, and then to look at how we are applying this to the wider membership of EuRA, country by country, by taking the template and widening it out. So first of all, I'm going to go from Brady Bunch style, left to right and down. I'd like to introduce you to George Holmes. There's me, Alistair Murray, Tad Zalinden, Adrian Leach, Mima Hillier, and Simon Johnson. And I will ask you to just introduce yourselves and your companies as we go around. First of all, Adrian, we had a conversation very early on. You dropped me a note saying, you know, with Seville, I mean, this is back in January, how's this going to work? So I know that this situation was very much in the forefront of your mind right at the beginning of the year. And you were the spark that lit this group. Can you tell me about that thought process and how it came about?
Yeah, okay, with pleasure. Well, hello, Dom, and everybody else who's watching. In a previous career, known to my family as LBR, long before relocation, or life before relocation, I managed a program called Plato, which was a Belgian idea that brought together business owners, small business owners, so they could work together to try and help one another through the challenges of running a business. It was a huge success in Hampshire and Dorset and other areas of the UK. And based on that, I wanted to try and get a group together of people who I respected, who were knowledgeable in the industry, who were business owners that were based here in the UK, who could try and help one another, because I think we are stronger together than apart, especially in a pandemic or anything else that affects our industry like this. So I gave a phone call to all of these lovely people and told them, outlined what I was thinking, and they incredibly said, yes, let's all get together. And so we did. We had our first meeting of the Relocation Survivors Group. And it's called the Survivors Group because we are going to survive out the other side of this pandemic and the lockdown and everything associated with it. So we put some ground rules in. We used the Chatham House rules to make sure that you could use the content and what you learned from it, but you couldn't attribute it to any individual. And that's how we got going as a group. We just wanted to exchange that knowledge and experience that we have to help one another, so you don't feel alone when you're doing it. So that's how it started.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting because obviously, you know, there's been a lot of things going around, you know, since this all began, hashtag we're all in this together. In this case, you know, you really are. And, you know, you are all direct competitors within your marketplace. And I think that stands as a great example of how, you know, our industry's matured and moved on, and how this can work with EuRA members widely. So I'm going to ask you one by one, just basically give me an idea of your operation and why you felt this was a good idea and why you were also so keen to participate early on. So George, can I start with you?
Yeah, thanks, Dom. Well, as you can see, they're pretty hairy times over here in the UK, in many different ways. But no, joking apart, we were delighted to be invited to join the group. It was an easy decision and one that we welcomed on many levels. I think we've all been lucky enough to work in an industry that we love. We've got amazing clients, and we've taken great joy putting an award-winning team together at Clearview Relocations. So, faced with coronavirus and everything and everyone's threatened in the same way, we've got to take this on in the most informed and sensible manner that we can. So I think we owe it to the industry, we owe it to our team, our partners and clients alike to pull everyone's sort of resources together and to fight this together. As they say, you know, more heads are better than one. I think what was of added interest too is not only were we going to talk about Corona itself, but we were going to straddle this with the bigger picture and look at the industry as a whole, and how we can improve that when we come out the other side. It's all very well, we can take these necessary measures and steps to deal with everything that we're facing now in the immediate battlefront. But taking things forward, we want the industry to be able to grow, to address some of those traditional problems that we faced. And whilst we're all competitors, we get on with each other, we trust each other. I'm sure many of you will have seen us drinking late into the night at some of the many EuRA events over the years. We've all got different areas of expertise. We're probably stronger in some areas and weaknesses in other areas. We've got different contacts, different processes, different clients and resources. And the idea of pulling all of these together, having a fantastic sounding board to make sure that we're going into this thinking that we're doing the right thing, knowing that we're doing the right thing. It was a no-brainer, really, and it's been great. It's been liberating, and I know that our direct team at Clearview Relocation have benefited. I know our clients have benefited, and we hope the wider industry is going to benefit with the work that's ongoing.
It's a fantastic project. I've spoken to each of you, and you've all said the same thing, that being able to actually sound off to each other, to be able to talk about the concerns, and you're all facing the same concerns. Alistair, again, same question to you. We spoke early on. We interviewed at the beginning of the crisis, and you right back then you'd agreed to participate. Again, similar reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of those moments that you'll probably remember for the rest of your life. Where were you when this kind of escalated so quickly? And I'll never forget being in the office on the Monday, 5 o'clock on the 16th, when actually a notification came up on my phone that from that point everyone needed to work from home. And we all gathered together as a team, and we said our goodbyes, and we didn't really know when we were getting back together. So the following day, on the Tuesday, I actually went into the office, just myself and one other, because we thought if there were any kind of glitches or any issues with anybody working from home, that was probably the place to be for one more day. And that's when somebody passed me a message. Ollie passed me a message and said, "Oh, Adrian has just called, can you give him a quick call back?" And it was just great to have a chat with Adrian that morning and saying he's putting this group together of similar companies, like-minded people. I think George, is absolutely right. We are competitors, but we're all friends. It's annoying in a way, because life would be much easier if we didn't get on, because we're competing against each other. But I have a massive amount of respect for every company involved, every individual involved as well. So for Adrian to say we're having a call that afternoon, when everything was quite raw, we were kind of all in survival mode, it was reassuring. And I think over time that the group has evolved. That initial call, just to hear other people in exactly the same position, to say we're all in the same position together, we're in the same boat. I think we agreed it wasn't a particularly pleasant boat to be in, but we were all in the same boat, was facing the same challenges and wondering how we were going to progress. I just found incredibly reassuring, incredibly helpful. Again, as George said, a no-brainer to be involved. It's been fantastic over the last sort of 6-7 weeks.
Okay, I mean, just reiterating what you said about that, that first day, that Monday and Tuesday, when we didn't know anything about any support at all. Those were very scary days, and I can imagine that during that early period, just the connection, keeping that connection going, you guys must have been fantastic.
Yeah.
Tad, you became involved at which point? And
I didn't become involved to begin with. It was very much these guys who got together. I came in at a later stage, and I think, in a sense, when Simon and I started talking about the whole issue of contacting politicians, is when I sort of came in. So I'll hold off for the minute. You carry on.
Okay. Yeah, great. Adrian, I'm going to skip past you and come back to you with a different question in a second, if that's okay, because obviously you were the motivation to getting this going. Mima, lovely to see you. How, again, when were you contacted, and what were your first reactions?
Well, it was when this whole thing happened, it was such a speed, just like Alistair said. The whole virus thing escalated so quickly. There was no preparation time. I couldn't find any guidebooks like what to do when COVID-19 hits the whole country and the whole world. And there was no survival books either. And it was Tuesday, exactly the same day, Alistair's, after the lockdown. At that point, I already closed the office, sent everybody home to work remotely, and felt really hopeless and helpless and thinking, I have no idea what to do now. So Adrian's phone call was like godsend. The whole group sounded great. We started to talk, and that was that horrible week before the government has given any help at that point for the companies. Mm-hmm. So it was incredible to realize that we're not in it alone. We are all together. We are riding the storm together. We will survive one way or another. And the whole idea of relocation survivors group with 5 different companies, competitors, and Chatham House rule, I was just thinking it has to work, and it has worked so well in many, many levels, and so many over my expectations as well. And it has also, it's helped in a personal level, it helped in a company level, everything that we discussed, and it is a brilliant sounding board, and long it will may continue.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. This is something that, you all know how different the situation's been across Europe in terms of, help, and then outside Europe as well. So, just the ability to be able to talk and to reassure each other must have been huge in those first days.
And also being able to talk honestly, really directly, because there are things you can't, amongst all the CEOs and MDs where we are, but you can't always talk to your staff about the big issues before it's clear in your head what you're going to tell them. So this has been really good, because it's sometimes really only on the top when you are there as a CEO on your own or MD. So this is almost like sort of expanded board of companies.
Yeah, very interesting. I was talking to Isabel Primont in an interview last week, and she said the same thing. She's like, when you are responsible and charged with motivating your teams, it can feel quite lonely, because you're the one trying to keep everybody positive the whole time. Simon, again, I know you readily agreed to participate, and also you are the chair of the UK Professional Association, the Association of Relocation Professionals. So again, just tell me about, what, again, the same sort of thing, what it meant to you and why you decided to be part of this.
It really wasn't a difficult decision. It's hard not to echo what everybody else said. On top of that, Adrian is a very persuasive character. So when he phones you up and says, we should do this, you kind of say yes, really. However, it was an instant decision. I echo what everybody else said. We might be competitors, but we're friends. And most importantly, I think we all respect each other enormously. So the idea of pooling what was going on, because at the day this was happening, we had just actually split the team to 2. Half the team had gone back. We had bare bones in the office. As Alistair said, we were shaking things down, making sure everything worked okay. I was sitting there going, what the hell is going on? Every day you seem to wake up and there was another sort of bombshell that had just arrived in the news, and we're trying to make sense of this. So the idea to actually, we could all come together and just share what we're seeing and pull some of the commonality and actually make sure that we're making the right decisions, not just for ourselves, but for our teams, for our clients, and for everything else, was too good. So I have to say, it was, as decisions go, this was the easiest one I've made this year by a mile. And it's been fantastically beneficial, I have to say. The respect between us all about what we do and don't discuss has never been broken. And everybody has sort of reached out to each other in different ways, just to sort of allow us to soundboard some ideas and to see whether we're on the right track, or to see whether there's something else we haven't picked up on, especially in the early days. So no, it's been a brilliant experience.
So pleased. And Adrian, just to come back to you, in those early days when when you're having those initial conversations, what did you think or hope this would achieve?
Precisely what it has done, really. The competitive friendship, as a way of trying to describe what we all are, was very important. I think we were all agreeing that we weren't going to be exploitative in any way. We weren't there to try and screw somebody over. We were there as a group of people who owned our own companies. We had invested blood, sweat, tears, and a great deal of money into. We wanted them to survive, and we are stronger if we can share with one another the problems that we have. Let me give you some examples. In the very early days, we didn't understand how furlough was going to work. And that made a really big difference to us because, you know, salaries are a big part of any company. And, you know, if you've got them, half of them out on furlough or all of them out on furlough, and what can they do and what are the rules and what happens if you've got somebody that you employed at the beginning of March and that you didn't have them on the HMRC rules? Could you actually claim furlough for them, or do you have to bring up the R word, redundancy? It's not, you know, all of those things. You don't want to be thinking of those alone. You want to be in with a group of people who empathise, sympathise and understand. And actually often, because this is a very imaginative and clever group of people, they often have answers that you haven't thought of. And it's that reassurance or that support. I've been very inspired by some of the things that I've heard from these guys. And it's helped me immensely. Not just the practical stuff of, yeah, we've all fallen off a cliff, or these are the problems with landlords or letting agents and social distancing, and these are the working conditions we've got to have for the people that go into the office. And these are the issues that we might have with cash flow and other things because maybe clients aren't there or whatever. All practical stuff that you need to run a company, and reassuring to know that you're not alone in suffering those things that you have to deal with. And that to me is what we've got out of this. And then eventually we got to this point where we were helping with the practicalities. And then it became more, hang on a minute, as an industry, we should be bigger and better than this. We should be getting more support from government. And almost as a consequence of the practicalities, lobbying came into this. And that's where we've got to.
It's incredible, again, the speed at which you've been able to implement things. Alistair, just for people, you're also on the EuRA board right now. So I wanted to ask you in particular, what kind of things have you discussed? And when we roll this out, you know, across the EuRA network, what were the questions that were really key at the beginning?
So I think, again, echoing what Adrian just said, the group, the agenda that the group had changed incredibly quickly. So to begin with, like I say, we were in survival mode and we were talking about operational issues quite specific. So we were talking about assignees that may have left the country and taken the keys with them, for example. You know, we may have talked about how to get people into service departments. You know, there's very specific industry concerns. How do we deal with the day-to-day? And then this did evolve very quickly because, again, as others have said, the news coming from the government was very, it was rapid. It was every day something, it seemed like it was monumental, was changing. And there was a time, you know, not that long ago, where I don't think any of us had heard the word furlough before. And then all of a sudden, within a few days, we were all furlough experts and knew the intricacies and were able to answer questions from you know, various different parties. So things changed really quickly, and therefore our discussion and what we were trying to achieve changed really quickly as well. So yes, it was the sort of minutiae of the operations to begin with, again, without sharing anything confidential. Then it became more about survival from just a small business perspective and what do we need to do. And then very quickly, I think we all agreed that the level of government assistance that we were being provided was amazing. You know, this is different to other examples in the past where there's been something industry specific, or it's been a financial crash, or there's been a recession. This is something where the UK government is desperate to help businesses survive. And so the furlough scheme has actually worked like clockwork for all of us. I think we've all managed to upload our data and receive the money back really quickly. It's been great. There have been loans available from the government as well. But then I think we all agreed that there are some things specific to our industry that we'd like to make the government aware of, because it's an industry that is incredibly important for the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, when the economy is trying to regenerate and rejuvenate. And yet the kind of the imbalance between how important we are and how well known we are is a bit frustrating for all of us. I think, you know, we all get a little bit frustrated with people saying, I didn't even know your industry existed. Or, you know, you fill in one of those online forms and you ask for which industry sector do you work in, and no matter how long the list is, you can never find global mobility or relocation because nobody really knows who we are and what we do. And yet if more people did, especially in the next few months, I think everyone would appreciate the important role we're going to play. So that was the point where we decided, you know, we need to get in front of as many members of parliament in the UK as possible and then that obviously translates to every country across Europe. So we do have a very strong message. You know, when we put together the things that we'd like to achieve and we'd like to make the government aware of, they're equally as applicable in the UK as or any other country across the globe. And I think once government realise just the size of our industry and the impact it has on the economy, then there are some things, some fundamental things that they could change to help us thrive in the future. So it's not just about surviving the next 3 months, it's about the role we'll play in the next 12 months, in the next 2 years, looking at kind of the next step, the next stage, which again, echoing what others have said, I found quite empowering, quite motivating. It's inspiring to know that we actually do play a really important role in the future of the economy. Not to kind of overblow things. I think we really do. The industries that we work with are across the board, and we're bringing people in that will be, helping this country get back on its feet. So that's why I think we've had some success so far with speaking to the government in the UK.
Which is great, and we're going to come on to that shortly. It's interesting how the theme for the Seville conference was recognition, reputation, revelation.
Yeah,
we were looking at recognition in terms of what you just said, that no matter how long that list is, you never see global mobility on it. Now we're looking at recognition in a very different way, and we're going to come on to that just now. And Simon, I wanted to ask you, as chair of the UK Association of Relocation Professionals, I think what's interesting about a supranational organisation like EuRA against a national organisation like the ARP, you actually have a lot of power within a body like the ARP. And I know that you've worked on governmental levels before. Mimi, you were in charge of some projects working with TAD when you were chair as well. Do you want to talk me through what you talked with TAD about the approach that the National Association could take?
So I think it's always born out of this conversation. I don't know which of us first mentioned writing to MPs. I'd love to say it was me because I can take all the credit, but it wasn't. So somebody said, we should write to our MPs, and we all did, with a varied bag of success. So some MPs were amazing, some just frankly didn't reply. And we were talking about this, and then I was speaking to Tad and saying, well, clearly there's another step to be done here. If we can actually collate that message and actually talk as one, and we actually worked out what we actually want to say, then we can take this forward. Now, I was very lucky. My local MP, somebody called Crispin Blunt, was very responsive. He listened. I had a long conversation with him and sent all the details. And he then forwarded that through to the Chancellor of the Exchequer's office to say that this isn't a discussion worth having, which was a massive coup to actually have somebody actually pass it through. So then speaking with Tad, we're saying, well, this is great, but what can we do next? We need to sort of corral the industry and get every member of ARP to write to the MPs. The more we join this narrative, the better. On top of that, we need more information. We know that we are a valid industry. We know we make a massive difference, but we didn't have the depth of data, which was something that was really lacking. So we talked to Tad about what can we do and get some surveys going. And Tad was very proactive in getting that sorted out. So the end result is we're getting some information now to allow us to actually go to much higher levels of representation. And we can talk about that later because a lot's happened in the last 3 or 4 working days in regard to that. So I won't jump the gun if you wanted to explore that later. But the end result is that I think the ARP has now really understood that we can significantly improve our profiles in industry. We're an industry that affects far more than anything else. We are probably not recognized in the way that we should be. And accountants or lawyers, etc., are truly understood. As I think Alistair said, I'm getting tired of actually explaining what we do as a relocation company. I mean, dear God, after 20, 30 years of this, really, we should know. Yes. So let's get on top of this and let's take this opportunity, however dark it is, to really get our profile. So if the government can recognize it, and that's what we're trying to do with the ARP. And I'm happy to say I'm very proud to be able to do this. I think the role we have with everybody in this call support, it's been extraordinary.
Yeah, it really has. And Tad, do you want to expand on that in terms of then what you took forward and what you did?
Well, I think I just need to wind back a little because in terms of EuRA, we had decided very, very early on in this crisis that we would write to all the members, which we then did. It was a different sort of letter to the one that was sent soon after to the ARP members. But we also wrote to the ARP members as well with this call to get people to write to their MPs and to put relocation into the forefront of people's minds. And it was at that point that I was talking to Simon, and all this discussion about getting some statistical information together, which is something, frankly, I enjoy doing that kind of thing. So it was a complete no-brainer. I was really happy to get stuck into it. And it's something that I have tried to do in the past with the ARP and to a certain extent EuRA, and it's not been terribly successful. But there's nothing like a pandemic to focus the mind, because I sent this questionnaire out, and to my amazement, I got a 40+% response, which was fantastic, because it meant that the figures that we came up with have some sort of value. It's not just 5% or 10%, it's 40%. And I was really pleased to get that. And so then Simon and I started looking at the figures, and then we began to work out, or I worked out, how they rolled out on a kind of national level. And although we know for sure that a lot of companies move people without using relocation services, we were able to estimate the number of moves in the UK which related to being business moves. And we were able to stick a figure at the end of that and say, okay, so this industry effectively is worth something like £6 billion. Now, I'm sure people sit there going, how is that possible? But if you start looking at the fact that in the UK alone, the turnover on, or the income for service apartment providers is something like 1.6, 1.7 billion. And if you say half of that relates to corporate relocation, which is not beyond the realms of possibility, you can start seeing that sort of figure building. And then there's the moving side, and then there's the international schools, and then there's the real estate companies, the money they make, and then there's all the consultants associated with this, the cleaning services, the check-ins, the check-outs. And when you add it all together, you are talking 6 billion. And we, and there are not that many relocation companies in the UK, but Simon and I decided, I think we said 5,000 to 8,000 people involved. And that group of people are producing at least, are responsible for at least 1/3 of that 6 billion. In fact, that's the whole lot. Our group is much smaller, it's about 3,000 to 4,000. So somewhere around half are responsible for 1/3 of that money. And it's incredibly important. And as Simon said, and has been said already, we're going to be kickstarting the British economy by bringing people in. Yeah. And we therefore got all this information together. And then I'm going to stop now because I've talked long enough, because I think Simon needs to take this on because he did the next bit, as it were.
Yeah, please, Simon. Yeah.
So really sort of wearing my ARP hat on, and this has been half the fun. We had a chat, and we decided also with an ex-politician, which I know very well, who has been trying to give some guidance as to how to get as much attention as possible from the Parliament. I wrote a letter to the Chancellor Exchequer, which I then shared with everybody on this call. Again, what a scenario. I mean, the idea that sort of 6-8 weeks ago that I would have been writing to the Chancellor Exchequer on behalf of the ARP and everybody on this call, helping to enhance that message is just extraordinary. So you just can't exaggerate this enough. So we've actually taken the survey that TAD completed, that everybody participated. We've actually pulled together a letter, and we've written directly to the Chancellor. I've actually echoed that to my local MP. We have actually shared that. We have actually used this ex-MP who's going to help lobby to try and get that message heard and understood to the highest levels within Parliament. So what do we expect to see on the back of this? Well, frankly, it'd be lovely if the Chancellor called us during the course of this conversation. That'd be great, in which case I'll happily step away. But to be honest with you, I'm not really expecting that. But what we are doing is we are actually getting a position now where we are talking to the highest levels as one voice to make us recognised of what we're capable of doing. Now, this is just a start. I should stress, it's very easy to say, well, that's the end of the story. Personally, and I think we all agree, this is a long way to go. So I'm very hopeful. I think, as Alistair said, is the impact this can have on us as an industry in the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, is what's really interesting. So we're going to keep on pushing and pushing and pushing to get recognition. And I have no doubt whatsoever we will get it. So if we can get that in the UK, from a EuRA perspective, I believe this is a complete benefit for, frankly, the whole industry globally. And this is just our part of what we can do to help. So a lot has happened in the course of, was it 5 weeks, 6 weeks since we first got together?
Can I just say one other thing? I think this is amazing. Absolutely, this is the whole point of an organisation like the ARP, like EuRA, getting people to work together. We want to see this happening around Europe. It would be, I don't think relocation survivors is the right title for the future, but you know, groups of members talking to each other, discussing stuff on a national level, trying to help each other achieve stuff without giving away state secrets. This is something that I am, it's been very long in coming. It's taken a long time for everyone to trust everybody. I remember years ago trying to get a group of people to help me do something and being basically told that, you know, we all work in isolation, we're never going to work together. But now we're working together and it's fantastic. And long may it continue. And I'm sure that we can do more. And I'm sure we can actually get some influence, certainly in the UK, to get some things changed. This is not, as you say, Simon, it's not just for now, it's for the future, it's forever. And I feel it gives added value to an association to be able to be behind this sort of thing and to be working with members to do this. And I'm really delighted with where we got so far.
I think it's also very interesting that, you know, you made the point, Ted, that when, I mean, in those figures that you got from the UK industry, that wasn't even including any kind of projected economic growth through the talent management piece that you're all doing.
Oh, no, nothing. Nothing.
So that in, it's exponentially very important to the...
Or indeed, you know, a company coming here and producing profits, hopefully paying tax in the UK,
yeah.
producing profits, but equally they employ people, those people earn money, those people spend money. This is just direct spend on things associated with moving.
Yeah, so I mean, and I know you put together, you have a great document which says, you know, that a lot of the things about the domestic situation within the UK that you're looking to change. You talked about the tax allowances changing. You talked about, you know, ports staying open. I know you talked about potentially getting, you know, if when aviation starts up again and it's restricted to certain important routes, that mobility is included in that. Can I just go around each of you and just ask, you know, where do you see, where are we going from here? George, starting with you.
The $1 million question, or the $6 billion question. I think obviously we're at a point now where the death rate over here is at its lowest that we've encountered, and hopefully that situation will move forward. We're getting increasing signs from our clients that they're looking ahead rather than just dealing with the mad panic that we've all been a part of. So there's definitely some planning coming on for future moves. We've still got a backlog of business that's been booked, and many of our clients are reiterating that those people will move here as and when they can. So I think, you know, we've had the opportunity of bouncing ideas off and dealing with our staff and our clients as best we can in that immediate aftermath. And now we're hopefully going to benefit from the Chancellor coming forth with some good news. But I think talking together about how we can overcome some practical issues that might prevail over just, you know, old simple things, you know, showing properties or allowing access to properties, how we deal with those. But I think the big thing is about how we can get some confidence back in our clients that we're able to do our jobs to get people safely settled over here, and that there is a future, you know, post-COVID. Our new normal, who knows what it's going to be like, but we're all going to be there to take part in it. We're going to discuss how we can help, and not just ourselves, and it isn't just us on this call. It's, you know, we're out there to promote and protect the industry as a whole. So I, you know, very privileged to be part of this. I'm far more positive as being part of this, and the ideas and the bonds that we'll all have built up over this period of time will be crucial in years to come. So I don't know what's going to happen. We're looking at how we deliver services. We're looking at everything. But as Tad alluded to, we need these planes back in the air before we can, probably service any meaningful volumes over here. And if we can do anything to change the parameters or the strict, whether it's tax or whatever other allowances that it is for future, and to perhaps encourage people that haven't moved here in the past because it's been too restrictive, or to encourage things, we'll be looking at everything that we possibly can and learning from what we've seen so far. But I think it just gives us all a bit more confidence and a little bit more peace of mind that we're not jumping into decisions that they're valued, and as we've all said on this call, we're stronger as a group than we are individually. To think that we now have a meaningful presentation in front of the Chancellor it's great. To know that we're a part of an industry that's way bigger than I would ever have expected that's pat on the shoulder time, and let's make it bigger and let's get it back on track.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's where we're looking at, what we can do with, the sort of similar sized industries certainly across Europe, in France, Germany, Spain, and obviously regionally outside as well. And Alistair, obviously you're going to be heavily involved in that project with EuRA. So again, can I ask you where you see this going in terms of, how it might work on a wider, more international basis?
Yeah, sure. So I think taking the UK as an example and then kind of extrapolating that out to the rest of Europe, I think everything we've discussed as a group, without this wanting to be a sort of party political broadcast, the government in the UK have been fantastic. So we talked about the possibility of redundancies, and there was a furlough scheme before we knew it. We talked about the possibility of small businesses running out of cash, and there was a loan scheme from the government straight away. And I think now, as Simon said, this is the beginning rather than the end of a process. So this is us being able to establish those relationships with the right people in the right departments of government to help increase recognition for our industry in the future. And I think it'd be great for that to be across the EuRA membership, to have different people in different countries, because this is not something that's going to add immediately to your bottom line, and it is quite time consuming, but really, really important. So spending time lobbying government in any European country, or speaking to the Chamber of Commerce or the equivalent, I think is the kind of thing that we're all looking to achieve, to be better prepared in the future, so that everybody knows about our industry, everyone knows the value it brings, and we can change the disparity between the value the industry brings to the economy in any European country against how well known we are and how recognised we are, and the services that we provide. So it's just the beginning, and it's just as relevant. This has been quite a UK-based conversation, but it's just as relevant in every European country as it is over here. I think we're fortunate in a way that the government have performed incredibly well, and as Simon said, they've been quite open to listen to begin with. We don't know where it's going to lead to, but to begin with, they've been quite open. And just an example is Simon Bell and Simon from Clearview, and I had a great conversation with our local MP. We happen to live in the same constituency, and Greg Smith, our local MP, was fantastic, and he was really engaged. He was really interested. The three of us joined a video call, and he was taking notes and said he'll do what he can. So now, it's a little thing, but we're connected on social media. We've exchanged emails as a follow-up. And I think that kind of relationship to build on in the future can only be good for our industry. And there's no reason why that can't happen in any other European country.
Yeah, I agree completely. Adrian, I'm going to come back to you last, if that's okay. I've got a specific question. Yeah, Mima, I wanted to just ask you the same thing. I mean, what responses did you get when you reached out to your MPs? And also, sorry, that's my point. I've got another one.
Well, varying levels. I contacted two MPs. One was more than useless, telling us that it's going to be a difficult year and it's a year to survive. So words of wisdom there.
Thanks.
The other one was very good, and he said that, you know, he's not the right person to be contacted. You have to contact the Chancellor of Exchequer, so which we are now doing. So quite a few of the MPs came back with the same thing, that that's the right way of doing it. So there's been various levels of support from the MPs, but the government as a whole, that's why I think the Relocation Survival Group, we are now in a lobbying stage after the initial panic, when there was no help before the government started to announce everything what Alice had just mentioned. So our working life, or the work and our companies, we can now be happy about the situation. It's best in a worse situation that we can be. So that has now given us time to actually start lobbying, start building the future, because we are coming out of this. And hopefully we will never be in a similar situation. There's another pandemic, but at least next time around, we are ready, and relocation is recognized as an industry sector.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's incredibly important. And what you've achieved so far is phenomenal. Simon, I wanted to ask you. Obviously, having the structure of a national association in place was very beneficial to them getting the research done and that kind of thing. Now, obviously, a lot of our members in other European countries don't have an infrastructure like that, and we also know that, you know, the support that we've been able to access in the UK has been pretty phenomenal. I mean, even on a global level, even compared with Denmark and Sweden and, you know, all those social democratic countries, for people in places which have had very minimal support, and who maybe don't have a national association, what would you say would be the best way to go about starting something like this? And I'm going to ask you the same question, Adrian.
I think the simple answer is don't underestimate what you can do yourself. It's very easy to actually say, well, there's no governing body or there's no group here, so what can I do? Well, that's just fundamental nonsense. So I think you've got to actually just go, well, look, I can make a difference myself. And as we discovered, we actually have made a phenomenal difference fairly quickly. So I'll say, speak to your local MP or your local political representation, get a group together, do some research, find something meaningful. So for us, the issue here is initially to show that we are making a difference in the economy of 6 billion. If we were a company and we employed 9,000 people and we affected the economy by about 6 billion, we'll be sitting in the Prime Minister's office, obviously 2 meters away, but we would be sitting there. So the idea that actually we have no voice is nonsense. So I would say to everybody is stand your ground, make your representation, do some research, collect as many people together, look at it cross borders as well. It doesn't have to be just from the country. So you can look at something that actually show the impact that one country is having against another, but just pull this together. The more we can do this, and this is where I think EuRA has got a phenomenal role to play, is that you're seeing what we're doing in the UK, and I've got a very UK-centric hat on as far as this is concerned, but actually then take that and then share that sort of intelligence with the rest of EuRA, and then EuRA can then share that intelligence back with us. And I think collectively we'll make an enormous impact within months. So yes, we're lucky, we have the ARP, we have TAD, we have yourself, but to be honest with you, we could have got there without it, but it would have been longer and clumsy to get there, but we would have got there. So I encourage everybody, just be as proactive as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And Adrian, I wanted to come to you last because you were the spark that lit this fire. And, you know, when it comes to, you know, some of the other, you know, the other places where this is possible, it was really about someone has to take the initiative.
I think there's a lot attributed here that isn't necessarily on my shoulders, because you've got to have a lot of people who are willing to listen. You've got a group of people here who, one way or another, would have come together because they have that mentality of cooperation and working together, and understand that you are stronger together than apart, which of course is exactly what an association is in many respects, if you then buy into it. I think as business owners, we spend a lot of time working in our business. This has given us an opportunity to work on our business. And I think that's an important differentiator. You know, we are a vital service, a very vital service to our economy. So, you know, which country you happen to be in, what we do as relocation professionals is vital. And as owners of these businesses, it's incumbent upon us not to just try and improve that bottom line all the time, but to make sure that we take a holistic view and do something about protecting our industry and getting it recognised by government. For all the points that everybody else has said here, that to me is vital. You know, we move talented people around that make a massive difference to the growth of economies in those countries. We have been banned because there is a global travel ban, really. Our industry has been decimated by that travel ban in the same way as when you shut a restaurant or a pub or a gymnasium. You can't do any business. Our business is greatly restricted, so governments need to help us. And they will do across Europe. That's an essential part of this. So for me, it isn't about necessarily a spark, it's finding that group of like-minded people who are willing to just put that competitive edge to one side, not to be exploitative, to learn to trust and see it as a virtuous circle to improve life for everybody. And that's, again, my message for Europe, I guess.
Thank you very much indeed. That is, yeah, and it's fun. You know, timing is so critical here. And I think at this point, our industry has found itself a maturity, which 10 years ago maybe wouldn't have led to people being able to be open and honest and to be able to do what you've done. So I'm incredibly in awe of you guys. Tad,
yes,
would you just like to outline how the next practical steps for the rest of the membership of EuRA?
Okay, well, so the next practical steps are that we will send out a survey monkey to all members. We will try, the survey monkeys will be grouped by country or by region where there are very few members. And we will ask people in the questionnaires exactly the same questions as we asked in the UK. It's not lengthy, it won't take hours, it'll take a few minutes, and it shouldn't be difficult for people to return that information. Once we have the information back, we will distribute it to the various different countries and tell them, say to members, get together or don't get together, but please use and help yourselves to actually promote the relocation industry in your country. I just want to finish on one thing. When I wrote to our local MP, a lady called Jo Churchill, once from her office, saying that she was a little busy at the moment because she is the Minister for Public Health, not surprisingly. But the letter said that were absolutely overwhelmed by the wealth of talent and different types of businesses that existed in their constituency. And I think therein something, make sure they understand this better, and we have to push this forward. And I suppose that was one of the things that was a major motivation in my wanting to get this going, get this moving. And within EuRA, we have for quite some time now had RMC meetings. We are now having in the UK DSP meetings, which is fantastic, to try and shape the way it is going to develop in the future. And we want to push this across Europe, push this across the world. And if it's a £6 billion industry in the United Kingdom, then if we take that global, lose what the figure is.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you very much, Tad. I'm sorry about the breakup there. Obviously, internet's under a lot of strain. George, Alistair, Adrian, Mima, Simon, thank you so much for what you've done. I raise my hat to you. And also, I'll just say, for once this research has gone out to the EuRA membership, it would be great if we can maybe form something like a LinkedIn group where if they have questions about how to start, or what sort of things you discussed, or some way of because obviously what you discussed, you said Chatham House rules. For people who don't know what that means, Adrian, do you just want to explain that?
I figured you'd ask me, so I thought I'd better write it down, Dom, so I get it right. So Chatham House rules are that the information disclosed may be reported on by those who are present, but the source may not be identified. So it's not total confidentiality as you would find in a non-disclosure agreement or a confidentiality agreement. It's just that you can't attribute where you got that information from. So it's an opportunity then to be open with one another, but not go, oh yeah, that's what Alistair told me, or Simon told me, or George, or Mima, or whatever. It's that you can't do that bit, but you can say, for example, well, I learned this about furlough, or I learned this about trying to keep a team together. And that way you can talk about it openly, but you can't necessarily attribute, well, you can't attribute it. All right.
Great. Yeah, thank you very much. That's very clear. And I mean, again, from that point of view, we are here in terms of EuRA, and you know, myself and Tad and our colleagues. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to let us know. The survey will be going out next week. In the meantime, thank you so much, everybody. You've done an amazing job. It's very, very good to see you. I'm just really sorry that we won't be sharing a nice large beer in the bar after this, but next year we will. Cheers, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.